The 28th Battalion, also known as the Māori Battalion, was a formidable combat unit within New Zealand's 2nd Division during World War II. Comprising around 900 men of Māori descent, the battalion quickly earned a reputation as one of the most courageous and relentless formations in the British Army. Their fierce determination and unyielding spirit made them a fearsome presence on the battlefield, striking terror into the hearts of seasoned Wehrmacht troops. The renowned German Field Marshal Erwin Rommel is often quoted, perhaps apocryphally, as saying during the North African campaign, "Give me the Māori Battalion, and I will conquer the world." While this statement is more accurately attributed to his chief of staff, General Siegfried Westphal, at a 1972 Afrika Korps reunion dinner, Rommel's admiration for the Māori troops is well documented. In his memoirs, he described them as among the elite of the British forces and lamented that they had not been captured and held in POW camps, rather than allowed to face his troops in open combat. The Māori Battalion was widely regarded as the most distinguished unit within the 2nd New Zealand Division. Both Axis and Allied forces were awed by their wild bravery and combat prowess. They became the most decorated unit in the division, earning numerous honors, including 2 Victoria Crosses. Lance Sergeant Han Manahi was even presented with a ceremonial Sword of Gallantry by Queen Elizabeth II. General Bernard Freyberg, commander of the 2nd Division, once stated, "No infantry had a more distinguished record, saw more action, or alas suffered heavier casualties than the Māori Battalion." The proposal to form a dedicated Māori unit was met with overwhelming support from the Māori community in New Zealand. Despite some reservations about fighting for a colonial empire, many saw it as an opportunity to assert equality and gain political representation. Following New Zealand's declaration of war on Nazi Germany on September 2, 1939, and under pressure from prominent Māori leaders like Sir Pierana Aingata, the government approved the formation of the battalion by October of that year. Initially, the unit included both Māori and non-Māori soldiers. However, as more Māori recruits completed training, they gradually assumed leadership roles within the battalion. During World War I, approximately 2,227 Māori and 4,508 Pacific Islanders served in the Māori Pioneer Battalion, which specialized in engineering and logistical tasks, laying barbed wire, farming, and trench construction. Though vital, their work was often seen as less glamorous. In contrast, the newly formed 28th Battalion was designed as an elite frontline infantry unit, entrusted with high-risk combat operations. These soldiers were not just warriors, they were symbols of cultural pride, resilience, and the enduring spirit of a people determined to be seen and heard on the world stage. The formation of the Māori Battalion as an infantry unit was seen by many as a natural extension of Māori culture, which revered above all else the glory and honor of the warrior. Their request to serve could not be denied by their elders and tribal leaders. For generations, Māori history had been steeped in the traditions of warfare, and the upbringing of a Māori child from infancy to adulthood was often centered around preparing him for the warrior class. To die in pursuit of the war god Tadatanga was considered both a sacred duty and a noble death. This deep spiritual connection to combat shaped the ethos of the battalion. The Māori soldiers blended many of their ancestral customs with the practices of the New Zealand Army. British officers observed that their communal and fraternal way of life made them naturally suited to camp conditions, where individuals ate, slept, and worked together, often sharing possessions and responsibilities. Selected officers and non-commissioned officers began training at Trentham in November 1939. The battalion officially assembled at Palmerston North on January 26, 1940. After 3 months of intensive preparation, the main body of the Māori Battalion departed Wellington on May 2, 1940, as part of the second echelon of the 2nd New Zealand Expeditionary Force, aboard the luxury liner Aquitania. The battalion typically consisted of 700 to 750 men, divided into 5 companies, 4 rifle companies of approximately 125 men each, and a headquarters company of around 200 personnel. Each company was led by a major or captain. The rifle companies, designated A, B, C, and D, were organized along tribal lines. A company, Gumdiggers, recruited from Northland to Auckland. B Company, the Divers, drawn from Rotoa and the Bay of Plenty. C Company, the Cowboys, originated from the East Coast. D Company, Walkabout, included men from Waikato, Hawke's Bay, Wellington, the South Island, and several Pacific islands including the Chatham and Stewart Islands. Headquarters Company, composed of personnel from across Moridom. After serving as garrison troops in the United Kingdom and France, the 28th Māori Battalion saw its first combat in late March 1941. They took part in the ill-fated British invasion of Greece, where they, alongside other New Zealand units, fought a courageous retreat from Mount Olympus. Despite their efforts, they were evacuated from Athens by ship on April 21, 1941, as the campaign collapsed. Their next major engagement came during the daring Allied assault on the island of Crete. In one notable clash near 42nd Street, close to Suda Bay, Māori soldiers launched a bayonet charge against a German mountain assault unit. They inflicted approximately 80 casualties, while losing only 4 of their own. As they charged, bayonets fixed, they shouted, "Ka mate, ka mate," translated as "I may die, I may die." These words were taken from a haka composed by Chief Te Rapera in the 1840s. The next line, "Ka ora, I may live, underscored the Māori warriors' acceptance of death before life. This fearless bayonet charge became a hallmark of Māori combat tactics, which relied on bold, shock-style assaults capable of overwhelming enemy defenses swiftly. Although the Battle of Crete ended in Allied defeat, the actions at 42nd Street and other valiant rearguard efforts allowed Allied forces to retreat across the island's rugged terrain to the southern coast. From there, they were able to evacuate to Egypt. By May 31, 1941, more than 16,000 Allied troops had successfully escaped. After their evacuation from Crete by the Royal Navy, the Māori Battalion regrouped in Egypt. They were now poised to enter the legendary desert campaign that would etch their name into military history. Their next assignment took them to Syria, where they spent time guarding against a potential German advance from the north. On June 14, 1942, the battalion rejoined the British 8th Army in the Western Desert. By June 26th, they were urgently deployed to the front lines at Ninkar Kane. Surrounded by Rommel's 21st Panzer Division, the Māori soldiers executed a daring breakout covering 160 kilometers in a rapid dash to the safety of the Alamein defensive line. Soon, a little-known railway station called El Alamein would become the focal point of the Desert War. The 8th Army launched its offensive on October 23, 1942, with a thunderous artillery barrage. Despite the intensity, Axis forces held their ground. A second assault on November 2nd broke through enemy lines elsewhere, forcing Rommel to retreat. However, the Māori Battalion paid a heavy price, suffering 100 casualties in the process. The desert stalemate had finally shifted into a relentless pursuit. On January 23, 1943, the Māori Battalion became the second New Zealand unit to enter Tripoli 2,250 kilometers west of El Alamein. By March 1st, they were engaged in fierce fighting near Medinine, Tunisia, repelling a determined German counterattack. The New Zealanders then launched a sweeping inland maneuver to seize the Tabaga Gap and outflank the enemy's Mareth line. The battalion's objectives were Hill 209 and a nearby ridge nicknamed Haikurangi. Led by Captain Peter Awater, C Company captured the ridge on March 26th and held it through a night of brutal counterattacks by panzer grenadiers. Hill 209 fell the next day, yielding 231 German prisoners. But the victory came at a cost, nearly 100 casualties, including 22 dead. Among the fallen was 2nd Lieutenant Monanuiakaiwa Ungarimu, whose fearless leadership earned him a posthumous Victoria Cross. Leading his men in close-quarters combat, he held the hill against relentless German assaults. According to the London Gazette, he was killed on his feet, defiantly facing the enemy with his Tommy gun at his hip. As he fell, he came to rest almost atop the bodies of the enemy he had slain. The number of survivors testified to his extraordinary courage and resolve. Back in New Zealand, Ungarimu was hailed as a national hero. Over 7,000 people attended a commemorative event in his honor, described by commentators as one of the greatest Māori gatherings of the century. Next for the indomitable 28th Battalion was the towering 200-meter rock fortress of Takruna, held by entrenched Italian and German forces. It blocked the 8th Army's advance toward Tunis. On the night of April 19, 1943, a small group from B Company, led by Sergeant Han Manahi, scaled a sheer cliff face to reach the summit. Others followed, and after 3 days of savage fighting, the defenders were overwhelmed. The battalion captured 300 prisoners, but suffered 116 casualties. Manahi was awarded the Distinguished Conduct Medal, though many believed he deserved a Victoria Cross. British Lieutenant General Sir Brian Horrocks called the assault the most gallant feat of arms I witnessed during the entire war. On May 13, 1943, Axis resistance in North Africa collapsed. 2 days later, the New Zealanders began their 3,000-kilometer journey back to Egypt. After 18 months of grueling desert warfare, the Māori Battalion had solidified its reputation as one of the world's finest shock infantry units. Between battles, the men of the 28th Battalion found time to bond and enjoy simple pleasures. As 2nd Lieutenant Waka put it, to lie around doing nothing, to walk without fear of being blown sky-high by shells, to sleep above ground in a real bed, to sit at a table and eat every kind of delicious food, to drink. These moments of peace were rare, but deeply cherished. Beer by the gallon, and not a German within 50 miles, such moments made life feel almost dreamlike for the men of the 28th Māori Battalion. Their camp life was a distinctive fusion of Māori communal traditions and the discipline of British military structure. Soldiers embraced opportunities for leisure and excelled in a variety of sports, including swimming, rowing, boxing, tug-of-war, hockey, and rugby. In 1940, while stationed in Britain, a team from the battalion was invited to play against a Welsh 15 in Cardiff, narrowly losing 12-3. But by 1943, they triumphed in the 2nd New Zealand Division's fiercely contested rugby tournament in Tripoli, defeating the divisional signals team 8-6 in the final. Entertainment played a vital role in maintaining morale. The Kiwi Concert Party toured the front, while mobile cinema units screened popular films and newsreels. The battalion's own performers regularly entertained 8th Army troops with songs and the haka, their traditional war dance. A chaplain was appointed to offer spiritual guidance, conducting prayers and ceremonies rooted in Māori customs, such as the karakia. He also blessed equipment and vehicles before combat missions. Another deeply personal tradition was the use of tai moko, Māori tattoos which served both as cultural identifiers and expressions of heritage. Many soldiers received these tattoos during training or while on leave. Despite the technological advancements of World War II, many Māori soldiers retained proficiency with traditional weapons such as the taiaha, a close combat staff, tachu, a handheld club, and paba, a woven shield. One notable example was Aubrey Roa, who used a taiaha to win a melee competition at the Small Arms Training School in the Middle East in 1943, defeating opponents from across the British Empire who wielded bayonets. The Māori Battalion arrived in Italy in October 1943, just weeks after Italy's surrender to the Allies. However, the country was now under German occupation, and resistance would continue until May 1945. The shift from Egypt's heat to Italy's cold, wet winter was stark. On December 7, 1943, the battalion returned to combat near Orsogna, engaging in bitter hand-to-hand fighting. Yet by Christmas, the town remained under German control. Of all the battalion's engagements, none was more harrowing than the battle for Monte Cassino in early 1944. The 500-meter mountain, crowned by a Benedictine monastery, dominated the route to Rome through the Liri Valley. Below lay the Rapido River and the fortified town of Cassino. After several failed Allied assaults, the Māori Battalion attacked the railway station on the night of February 17, 1944. When supporting tanks couldn't break through, they were forced to retreat under intense fire. A and B companies suffered catastrophic losses. 128 out of 200 men were killed, wounded, or captured, a staggering 64% casualty rate. Another assault in March led to brutal close-quarters combat amid the ruins, but the New Zealanders were withdrawn in early April. Cassino finally fell to Polish forces in mid-May. After a period of rest, the New Zealand Division returned to the front in July 1944. 28th Battalion played a key role in the advance on Florence, becoming the first unit to reach the city's outskirts on August 4th. As the war progressed, the battalion participated in pursuit operations, crossing the Sive, Salerno, Serchio, and Po rivers with minimal resistance. The war eventually drew to a close with the division stationed in Trieste, near the modern-day Slovenian border. There, they faced a tense standoff with Tito's Yugoslav partisans, who sought to annex the city into post-war Yugoslavia. During their time in Italy, many Māori soldiers picked up the language with ease. Songs like Buon Natt, Mio Amor became part of their repertoire. The warmth of Italian villagers made many feel at home, and some formed romantic relationships with local women. When the battalion departed Italy in December 1945, more than a few tears were shed. Between 1940 and 1945, nearly 3,600 men served overseas with the Māori Battalion. Of these, 649 were killed in action or died on active service. 1,712 were wounded. 237 became prisoners of war. This amounted to a 65% casualty rate, an extraordinary figure for a unit that was never destroyed or decisively defeated. Their losses were nearly 50% higher than the average for New Zealand infantry battalions during the war. To sustain the battalion, fresh recruits were regularly sent from New Zealand. Many Māori also served in other units of the 2nd New Zealand Division, the 3rd Division in the Pacific, and in domestic army units and the Home Guard. Others joined the Air Force, Navy, and Merchant Navy. Māori women contributed as well, serving in the Army Nursing Service and in auxiliary roles within the Women's Army, Air Force, and Navy. In total, nearly 16,000 Māori served during the Second World War, a testament to their commitment, courage, and enduring legacy. Out of a Māori population of just 100,000, thousands volunteered for war service, a staggering testament to their devotion and sense of duty. After the war's end, the 28th Māori Battalion set sail for home on Boxing Day, 1945. When they arrived in Wellington on January 23, 1946, 780 returning soldiers were greeted as heroes. They were soon dispersed to their home Maori across the country. At their final assembly, their commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel James Henner, addressed them with words that would echo through generations. Go back to our mountains. Go back to our people. Go back to our Maori. But this is my last command to you all. Stand as Maori. Stand as Maori. Stand as Maori. The Maori community had paid a heavy price. Many young men never returned, Others, upon coming home, left their rural communities in search of work in the cities, forever altering the social fabric of Māori life. Yet the war had also transformed race relations in New Zealand. Māori soldiers had earned the deep respect of their Pika, non-Māori, comrades. Their courage, discipline, and sacrifice helped shift perceptions, making the future of Māori as an integral and respected part of New Zealand society feel more secure. Despite the pain of loss and the challenges that lay ahead, the service of the 28th Māori Battalion had left an indelible mark, not only in defeating the Nazi threat, but in proving themselves among the bravest soldiers to walk the earth. Their legacy lives on in the stories, songs, and haka passed down through generations. They stood as warriors. They returned as heroes. And they remain, forever, a symbol of Māori pride and sacrifice.